Good morning. Welcome to the Hockey Variety Podcast, episode 19, I think. It might be 18. I think we're on 19 now. And yeah, thanks for tuning in. This is a surprise emergency Sunday podcast that I am going to be posting on Sunday, just because a lot of stuff happened yesterday and this morning that I want to talk about. There's a pretty good chance I will do another podcast later today and post that maybe on Tuesday or something. Again, I want to space these out, but it's tough. There's so much happening these days. So lots of current events in today's episode. Don't expect this one to be too long because, man, things are just changing so much. I don't want to ramble too much about one topic because it could be totally different the next day. Not much going on in my life. My guys got the big win last night, really, really late game in the city that of course I couldn't go to because it snowed like crazy again yesterday. And yeah, they got a big win against a team that's right behind us in the standings. So we're looking pretty good coming into the playoffs here. I think we've got 5 games left in our season and we're looking pretty good. So yeah, big win. Big shout out to my guys for pulling that off. I got some afternoon hockey today. My usual Sunday time got bumped to the afternoon, so yeah, looking forward to that. Hopefully I play better than yesterday, because my god, I was so bad yesterday. And yeah, that's about it. Our elder cat, oh boy, okay, so this morning, we were stretching. My fiance, she had a shift, I had to shovel snow, thought I'd stretch a bit before, right? We hear this like crinkle coming out of the spare room, and we're like, what's that? So we go check it out, and we realize the elder cat, who is very well behaved, like the most well behaved cat, he's just got a bunch of he just punched a bunch of holes into like a bag of catnip. So I don't know, cat might have a problem on his hands. Now I am going to be talking about a lot of current events, a lot of things that haven't happened yet. So just a disclaimer, it is 9:13 Pacific on Sunday morning. So if things change right after I post this, then, that's the way it is. Again, I do want to do another one later today, but yeah, we'll just kind of have to see how the rest of the day unfolds. All right, so the big news out of the games last night, Linus Ullmark, goaltender for the Boston Bruins, scored a goal. And it was actually kind of neat. I just tuned into the game. I listened to a lot of the radio broadcasts just because, usually I'm cooking or doing chores or something. So, I'm not, if it's the game's on TV, I'm not really watching it. So at least if I'm listening to it on the radio, I can bring the speaker around the house or whatever. But, yeah, I know I'm old. But yeah, no, I tuned into the Vancouver game with 5 minutes left. And I actually got to hear this get announced on the radio, which is pretty cool. And then some number of minutes later, I see it on Instagram, and it was a pretty nice goalie goal, I guess. Nothing too different from any of the other goalie goals we've seen. But I mean, he hit pretty much dead center, pretty close to dead center in the net, and definitely a hard shot as well as goalie goals go. My favorite of all time will always be Mike Smith's goal, just considering the timing of it all. He made a pretty routine glove save, but just reading the clock and just slamming the puck on the ice, shooting it, and scoring with 0.1 seconds left. That's an all-time classic. But I don't want to take anything away from Linus Ullmark, because this is a big accomplishment. He's the first goalie to do it since Pekka Rinne did it a few years ago. I can't remember what season that was. Maybe 2018, 2019, if I were to take a guess. And yeah, congrats to him. This is the pretty undisputed front runner for the Vezina Trophy at this point. And I remember at the quarter point of the season, the NHL, they'll do kind of the voting a quarter of the way through the season and then halfway and 3/4. And I remember at the quarter mark, the voters had Hellebuck just above Ullmark. And I didn't get that, because in every statistical category, wins, save percentage being the big one, wins and save percentage being the two really big ones when they're looking at goaltenders. But then also, little things like shutouts and games played as well. And yeah, Hellebuck was just above Ullmark, and it made no sense to me. And then I remembered that a lot of the times, the voting, it's a popularity contest. They tend to give a bit of an edge to the guys who have won it before or have been in contention for it before. And this is Ullmark's first really, really good season. But I think that's a load of crap. I really don't like that. But who cares? Because at this point, it is Ullmark. Things are working out as I kind of expected them to and hoped they would. Because I'm a big fan of Linus Ullmark. I really like his story. And I really like seeing guys come out of nowhere when it comes to these awards. Like, I'm not saying I was a huge Adam Fox fan going into his Norris Trophy, but I was happy to see somebody else win the Norris. I like that, and I really, really hope that Ullmark wins the Vezina this year. I think he will. I would almost put him in the Hart conversation if it weren't for McDavid just putting up completely insane numbers once again. Just getting better and better every season. That's the thing. When you have a forward who is just so special like McDavid, even if a guy has like a Carey Price-esque season, it's tough to beat that forward that just puts up crazy numbers. And, Karlsson might be the first defenseman in a while to put up 100 points, but McDavid, he's just going to put up insane totals again this year. And it's not really going to make the Hart Trophy contentious at all, but we can debate who will be nominated. And I'm going to go ahead and say I think Linus Ullmark gets nominated for the Hart Trophy. I think he finishes second or third in voting. He's not going to win it. It's McDavid. Yeah. Considering the goals he's putting up this year too, McDavid that is. Though you could say the same about Ullmark, I guess, but because he's got one. And you know what? I think that is going to be considered when voting comes around. I know goalies scoring a goal or whatever, but hey, I mean, it is an accomplishment. I'd say more of a career accomplishment, since I think every goalie would like to be able to do this someday, and only a handful managed to. So, yeah, kudos to Ullmark. He hit the 30 win mark last night as well. He is the second fastest goalie in history to do that, behind another Boston goalie who did it, Tiny Thompson, way back when, who I think did it in one less game than Ullmark. So he is having a historical season. I don't think it's getting talked about enough. Really, I think we were singing Shesterkin's praises last season, and Ullmark's having a very similar season, and people aren't talking about it. And you know what? I'm sure there's people that are like, oh, Boston's a good team, and that's why, but hear me out. He has been Boston's MVP this season. He is, I want to say the reason, but he is, in my opinion, the biggest reason why Boston is having so much success. I know they've got a great forward core this year. Their blue line is looking really, really good as well. But he's the guy, really. And hey, Jeremy Swayman's not half bad either. He's a pretty good goalie, but Ullmark's just been unreal. He's the guy you're going to ride into the playoffs. And he's been the best player on that team this season. And I think he deserves to be in the Hart conversation, but it's not a conversation. It's McDavid. He deserves to be in the conversation for second place in the Hart Trophy. So, anyways, shout out to him. And yeah. So there's going to be quite, like yesterday's episode, I'm going to be kind of stopping and starting again just to check social media, see if anything happened, so I don't have to change these slides at the last minute. So we had a bunch of trades yesterday, well, a few yesterday, and then one this morning already. So, I got it backwards here because I just took this off TSN, but let's start with the one at the bottom there. So Vitaly Kravtsov going to Vancouver from the Rangers for William Lockwood and a 7th round pick. This was one of the guys who was in the conversation for maybe a part of the package going to Chicago in the Patrick Kane trade, which we still don't know yet at the time of recording, the details of all of that. And I do plan on talking about that in this episode, so more on that later. But I guess he's not going to Chicago, he's going to Vancouver. And I think this is a fantastic trade for Vancouver because this is exactly what Vancouver wanted to do. They wanted to get younger, and they brought in a young player that, needed a change of scenery. He's going to get to play with a bunch of other Russians as well. I like what Vancouver's doing, having some Russian prospects here, young Russian players, and just kind of, maybe doing a little a little Detroit in the 90s kind of thing here. Well, obviously not like good, but similar idea, Detroit light, I guess. Except without the cups and the success and the no misery, I guess. It's a tough time in Vancouver right now, but I think this is a spark of hope, let's say, because this is a player I could still see him turning into a very, very good hockey player. He was drafted high, pretty highly praised. Who knows, right? And then as for the turn of the Rangers, they're in a tough spot. They can't bring back much any player with like a big cap hit or anything like that. They got a pick. I'm not going to criticize them too much because this is a guy that's been on the way out for a while. Kratzov that being. So I don't know. It's nice for the Rangers to have this off the books, but if you're going to pick a winner, I'm going to go ahead and say Vancouver. I think this is good for them. All right. Very snotty today. Sorry. Winnipeg and Nashville made a trade yesterday. Two teams that I always I thought they were kind of rivals a little bit, especially in the 2018 playoffs there. I thought these two teams, it's weird seeing them help each other a little bit. But Winnipeg gets Nino Niederreiter for a second-round pick going back to Nashville. Next year's second-round pick. And yeah, pretty good trade for both teams. This might be telling us, though, that Nashville is thrown in the towel and they are going to be sellers at the deadline, which I think is a good idea. I mentioned this in yesterday's video. I think Nashville and Calgary, though Calgary has a better chance at making the playoffs at this point. But yeah, I think Nashville should be selling. They should be looking to retool, try again next year. Or maybe seriously look at that core and consider a rebuild. But I don't know. When you have a guy like Saros, I really can't see this team going for a full rebuild anytime soon. As long as they have Saros, right? So yeah, good trade. This gives Winnipeg a bit more depth. I really thought Winnipeg needed to make a deal and mix something up. I think this is the start. I do think Winnipeg should try to make another deal. But yeah, good trade for both teams. Got not much more to say. Montreal and Dallas. You know what? I haven't looked into this trade too much. I haven't really looked at how Gurianov and Dodonov are doing this year in terms of stats. I'm pretty sure both guys are having a down year, though. So this is just more of a change of scenery thing. We've seen Dadonov go somewhere else and succeed before. So not in Montreal, but when he was in Vegas last season, or was it last season? Might have been 2 years ago. I think it was last season though. When he had the whole no trade list drama stuff, whatever. Anyways, I don't have much to say about this trade. We just have to kind of wait and see what happens. We'll see if either of these guys can go on to have a strong finish to the season. I'd say this is pretty low risk for both teams. I haven't looked at the contract situation for either of these guys either. I probably should have done a bit more homework before hopping on the pod here, but you know what? We'll have to kind of wait and see. Maybe if I'm missing anything like glaringly obvious, or if this is actually a terrible trade and I just don't know it, I'll mention it in the episode I'm probably going to do later on today once we have a bit more info. So, yeah, some trades for you guys. I do got one more trade that we don't know the details of yet. And I'm actually going to pause the video really quick and see if anything's come out. So the details of this trade have yet to be released, but we do know that Ivan Barbashev will be a member of the Vegas Golden Knights as soon as today. I just don't know what's going back to St. Louis as of yet. Apparently, it is a prospect, and that's all I've heard. I think that was Darren Dreger reporting it. And yeah, a prospect. I don't know that. It really depends on the prospect. I don't know too much about Vegas's prospect pool, but I have to imagine it's kind of lacking. And I'm going to talk about that in the next section as well. But Yeah, going to be interesting to see the details of this trade. Ivan Barbashev is certainly not no one. He's a pretty good forward. One of the names that's kind of higher up on the list, and Vegas needs a bit more forward depth. More on that later as well. I think this is a good move for Vegas. It really depends on which prospect they send back. You got to think it's probably one of their, maybe not their top prospect, but one of their more highly regarded prospects, I would say. Because you're not gonna trade for Ivan Barbashev for a guy who might be an NHLer someday. You have to think one of Vegas's better prospects are going back to St. Louis. So hopefully in this afternoon's episode, I will know the details and I can report a bit more on what happened there. But yeah, either way, I can't see this being a bad move for Vegas. They need some more forward depth, especially with Mark Stone out of the lineup. And I think they should be kind of playing around with some of Jack Eichel's line mates and just sort of see how things are going. They're still top in the West at the time of recording this. They're getting some good goaltending from like Brossoit. So, while Thompson's been out and obviously Leonard's been out. Did you forget Robin Leonard is a member of the Knights? Because I kind of did. So, yeah, there you go. And I know that because I was looking at their LTIR list. And I was like, oh, hey, Robin Leonard. That's right. And now Mark Stone. I guess just on a side note, too, it's kind of looking like Vegas might be the new Tampa when it comes to playing around with LTIR and the cap and stuff. And I've never faulted GMs for doing that because it's just strategic. Like, do you think Tampa really cares now? Because they have 2 cups. Like, who cares what people think about them, quote unquote, playing the system or whatever? I think that's just being a good manager. Personally, I think instead of insulting the team or being kind of bitter, oh, they're cheating. This is the manager being a good manager. Like, I think we focus so much on the players on the ice that we forget that you can be a good manager or you can be a good head coach. And those guys, in my opinion, don't have nearly as much significance as the players. But hey, there's a job to do when you're a manager, and I think playing around with the rules that are in place, not technically breaking any rules. Because don't forget, the NHL has never came out and been like, no, you can't do that. When it comes to these situations with Tampa, with Vegas, and for that reason alone, like, they're not cheating. If they were cheating, the NHL would have a problem with it, which they don't right now. Also, by the way, Vancouver did this in the early 2010s, I think, and they never won a cup. So just because you're doing this doesn't mean you're going to win the cup. Yeah, I know Chicago did some cap shenanigans back in the day when they were winning their cups. Obviously, Tampa did. We'll have to wait and see. But, if this whole LTIR stuff comes into play and Vegas goes on to win the cup, people are going to have a problem with it, but Vegas won't care because they have a Stanley Cup. So there you go. We'll have to see how this all plays out, though. So we had a bit of an update on the Timo Meier sweepstakes this morning / last night. Apparently, it's down to 2 teams, New Jersey and, once again, the Las Vegas Golden Knights. And I took a look at each team's projected lines, who they have in the roster right now, who's hurt, blah, blah, blah. And both of these teams could definitely use a Timo Meier. I know pretty much any team in the league could, but especially these 2 teams. We'll start with Vegas because I've already been talking about them. With all these injuries, they're starting to lack some forward depth, and I really think they could make use of another top line forward. He would be a great fit in Vegas. Now, I think what's hindering Vegas right now is, first of all, long term, the financial stuff might get complicated because you're going to want to sign Meier. So that kind of complicates things with some of the heavier contracts they have right now. You might be thinking maybe some money will go back to San Jose, perhaps with either of these teams. So something to think about there. But I don't know what a package from Vegas would look like. And I'll talk about New Jersey in a second. But, it's probably going to be a lot of picks. Because there isn't too much there in the prospect pool for Vegas. So it's probably going to be a lot of picks. You got to think at least 2 firsts and then other things, right? And probably a bit of money going back to San Jose. But I think New Jersey is still the front runner, in my opinion. I think he's going to end up going to New Jersey. I mentioned this before on the podcast. I still think this is going to happen. And I got the main reason for that is I think New Jersey will be able to put together a better package than Vegas could, because New Jersey just has better prospects. They've got more of them. They've got top line guys, or future top 6 forwards like Holtz. I don't think they'll part way with Dawson Mercer, but maybe. It sounds like Nemec and Luke Hughes are totally off the table for good reason. I wouldn't even consider putting those two together or either of them into a trade for Timo Meier. Especially Hughes. I think for Hughes it's a good keeping him around and having him in the lineup eventually. I think that's a good move for keeping your top player on your team happy, that being Jack Hughes. So, yeah, I think New Jersey's, they'll be able to put together a better package. I think they'll be able to make the money work when discussing a contract extension with Meier. I just think they're in a better situation to bring in Meier. They are already a pretty deep team in their forwards. If they brought in Timo Meier, it's just getting silly. It's just insane. I do think one of those guys will end up going back to San Jose. And you know what, actually, I'm just going to pause and just get New Jersey's cap friendly open on my phone here, just to kind of see what might end up going back to San Jose in terms of, the financial side of things. Okay, so we've got some breaking news before we get back to the Timo Meier situation. Vegas is sending off Zach Dean to the St. Louis Blues for Ivan Barbashev, 1-for-1. That was Vegas's 29th overall pick in 2021. So not last draft, but 2 drafts ago. He's currently playing in the QMJHL for Gatineau. He's putting up some pretty impressive totals, but as an overager, so, I don't know how much is there. Because, when guys go back to junior after being drafted, if they're over a point per game as a forward, then it's okay, cool, but let's see what you can do in the AHL. Let's see what you can do in the NHL kind of deal. So, but then again, being over a point per game in junior the year after your draft or 2 years after your draft, it's not nothing, because it's still showing you can produce at that level, but we really have to see how this guy does in the AHL whenever that happens, or the NHL. We'll have to wait and see, because maybe there will be a roster spot for him in St. Louis. We'll have to see how training camp goes this summer, but yeah, can't really complain. We'll have to wait and see how this goes. He played for Canada in the World Juniors as well. 3.7 games, 33 penalty minutes. Holy cow. In 7 games in an international tournament. That's impressive in my books, but hopefully he didn't do something egregious that I forgot about. But anyways, I got New Jersey's cap friendly open right in front of me right now. And they can send some money out and make this work. There's only 2 guys on their roster with a no movement clause that I can see. And that is Dougie Hamilton and Andre Palat. And you wouldn't be sending either of those guys out anyways. They're really important pieces to that team. So, yeah, and they've got some RFAs that maybe they could send to San Jose just so they don't have to worry about extending those guys. Because you're going to extend Meier. That's going to be expensive. But you look at some of their forwards, like Tatar. I can't remember off the top of my head how he's doing this year. But they do have some pretty expensive forwards they could part ways with. And you might only need to drop one of them in order to make this work. So we'll have to wait and see. I don't know if they'd be considering sending out Bratt. But in terms of re-signing Meier, that could make things... It could be useful to send him out. But then you don't have Jesper Bratt, who's a pretty important part of that team. So... are you really making this team better by sending a guy like that out? I also do have a little bit more of a prediction. Okay, I got a few predictions in this podcast. I have a feeling that maybe we see a goaltender go to New Jersey as well. Meier and one of their goalies, maybe Kaapo Kähkönen, maybe Reimer, just to get a bit more depth, because we've seen New Jersey's goalies have a bit of an issue staying healthy this season. And that's nothing new in New Jersey. Like, didn't they have a season where they went through like 8 goalies? And I know Schmid looks great, and I know Vanacek's having a good year too. And, you know, Blackwood, he's in and out. And then Jonathan Bernier is pretty much out of the question as far as I'm aware. So, you know, I think if you bring in like Kaapo Kähkönen, just so you have a pretty good number 2, number 3 goalie behind Vanacek, if Blackwood's still out, I think that's an idea. And, you know, it gives San Jose the opportunity to get their young goalie prospect going in. What's his name? Etu Makiniemi, I think his name is. You know, it gives San Jose an opportunity to give him a few more looks before the season is up. And obviously they're going to keep either Kähkönen or Reimer in that case. So they still got a number 1 there to ride out the year. So I don't know. My prediction is Meier, and maybe we see a goalie go from San Jose as well, just to give New Jersey a bit more depth in that, and maybe make the return a little bit better. We'll have to wait and see. This is definitely the trade that is big time on my radar right now. But I do have another kind of trade update, I guess. So nothing new on the Patrick Kane side of things, at least at the time of recording this. Let me very quickly look on my phone without pausing the video and just kind of see if there's anything new. It doesn't look like it. Yeah, nothing new at the time of recording this. It is 9:45 a.m. Pacific when I'm recording this, so just so we have a little time stamp or whatever. But yeah, nothing new on this front. I have been thinking about my video yesterday, though. I gave it a listen, and I was like, okay, I have a little bit of a prediction here. Just kind of going off some of the stuff I said. Like, I remember saying that I don't know if the return is going to be big or small or what. I gave it some thought, and I'm pretty confident that the return to Chicago, so what Chicago gets back for Patrick Kane, I think it's going to be less than people expect. That's kind of my prediction. I'm not saying they're going to get like a 6th-round pick for him. I'm not saying they're going to get back like pennies. No. But, you know, this is a future first ballot Hall of Famer, 3-time Stanley Cup champion, Hart Trophy winner. I know it was a while ago, but Conn Smythe winning trophy. Like, there's a lot of hype behind Patrick Kane, and for good reason. But again, since Chicago doesn't have much leverage in this situation because he's on a full no movement clause, Patrick Kane's calling all the shots here. You know, Chicago needs to get back what they can. And I don't think they're in a position to really have that high of an ask. I'm still pretty uncertain of what a trade is going to look like, but the Rangers will not be overpaying for Patrick Kane, because Patrick Kane, it'd be great to have him, but do they really need him? That's a question, right? I'm not answering that question, but you know, do they need a Patrick Kane? They would certainly welcome him for sure. He would be an excellent addition to that roster, but you know, the Rangers aren't really, like, they don't need to do this either, and Chicago knows that. So the longer this trade gets pushed off, I feel like the asking price is going to end up going down, because the closer and closer you get to the trade deadline on Friday, the more desperate Chicago's going to get, because they need to get something back for him. So I do think the return is going to be less than we expect. And for the record, I know it hasn't happened yet. I know reporters came out and said, like, oh, it's 99% sure and this and that. And I like to think of that as like, you know, when you're restarting your computer, like when you're updating your computer, and they have the percentage there, right? It's like, it'll usually jump pretty quick. It'll be like 25%, 50%, whatever. And then once it gets to 99%, you notice that's a really long wait. like not like a long wait these days, but I remember in like the 2000s, if I was updating my computer, once you get to 99%, it felt like you were there for like 5 minutes, right? And that's the thing. I feel like reporters, first of all, they have a job to do. They have to keep themselves relevant. But until the trade actually happens, take that 99% with a grain of salt. Unless one of the general managers comes out and says, yep, this is done. This is done. We're just waiting for another team, Unless a general manager comes out and says that, the trade isn't done, We might not see Patrick Kane get traded. He's probably going to get traded, okay? All signs point to that. He's going to New York. We all know that. But that 99%, it's just like waiting for your computer to update. That 99%, that final percent seems to be the longest percent when updating your computer. And it feels the same when it comes to trade speculation, okay? And yeah, the reporters, they have a job to do. Guys like Elliot Friedman, Darren Dreger, all those guys, Frank Saravelli, they've got a job to do, right? So if they're like, hey, this is pretty much done, we should be able to trust them, but I can't blame them too much for them coming out and saying it's 99%, it's almost done, and it hasn't quite happened yet. So just want to give you one last prediction on the Patrick Kane situation. I don't think they're going to get as big of a return as we expect, but in Chicago's position, they just got to get back something at this point. Okay, final thing for today, and I will do one last trade Google search before I wrap up the video today when I get to the little outro. Okay, so I got a fantasy pick. Now, it has been brought to my attention that a lot of the fantasy picks I pick aren't necessarily that helpful because in my leagues, and I know at least two fairly regular listeners of this podcast are in fantasy leagues with me. My fantasy pick is often guys I've already picked up. So it ends up more so being me bragging about my pick or me talking about how bad my pick was because I know how it went down because I already picked up this guy. So I'm going to try to stop avoiding that. Now, for today, I picked a player, or not try to stop avoiding. Sorry, I'm going to avoid doing that going forward, okay? Because I do want the fantasy pick to be helpful. Yes, if you're in one of my leagues and you listen to this podcast, I am competing against you, but you know what? I want this to be I do want this to be more of a recommendation rather than me explaining the picks I already made. So this is a player I haven't picked up yet in either of my leagues. Maybe I should double check. I don't know. I might have it mixed up with JT Comfer right now, but yeah, no, I do. Okay, so I don't have this guy in either of my leagues yet. Okay, I'm thinking about it. This guy's been on my radar for a minute because he has just been on fire. So Dawson Mercer, center / left wing on the New Jersey Devils. I almost said the New Jersey Rangers. Lots going on in the New Jersey area these days. So there you go. New Jersey Devils, Dawson Mercer, young forward for the team. He has been on fire. You can see the stats right there on the screen. Just on fire. He's got how many goals there? 8 goals in his last 6 games. Couple assists in there too. Yeah, he's been looking good. Shots, he had 8 shots that one game against Pittsburgh. Yeah, the Devils, they've been on fire and he's been a big part of it. He's only like 33% in Yahoo right now, 33% rostered. So there's a good chance he's available in your league. I actually am going to start putting up the schedules of who they're up against. That is from Monday until Sunday. So February 27th being a Monday and March 5th being a Sunday. They've only got 3 games next week. And their first game next week is not till Wednesday. So you might want to hold off picking him up until Wednesday, provided he's still available that day. I am just double checking to see if the Devils play today on Sunday. They do not. So it's really up to you. You might want to get the jump start though, because who knows how long he'll be available. I picked up Bowen Byram last week, days before his first game of that week. And he was fantastic in all the games he played so far this week. So, sometimes getting ahead and just making sure you pick up a guy before someone else does, it can be beneficial, but you just got to watch out, because if you pick up Dawson Mercer today, he doesn't play for 3 more days, then, that's a roster spot you could have spent on someone else. But if Dawson Mercer is fantastic in these 3 games this week, then you can argue that it's worth it. Just like Bowen Byram with me this week. I still can't believe he was available in one of my leagues. He's just insane. I will brag about that pickup. But Dawson Mercer, personally, I haven't picked him up yet. But you know what? When Wednesday comes around, if I got some room, I'm going to consider it. Notice how he does not play on the busy Saturday. That is always a day I look at when I make my fantasy picks. I try to avoid players that play on Saturday, because you don't want to kind of like have a bit of roster overflow and end up having to bench a guy for no reason. So that is something I look at as well. And like Tuesdays and Thursdays are usually pretty busy days in the NHL. Notice how he doesn't play Tuesday or Thursday either. So Dawson Mercer, he is my pick for today. And I'm just going to pause one last time and just see if anything has happened in the trade world. So nothing new on Patrick Kane, nothing new on Timo Meier, and no other trades other than the details in the Ivan Barbashev trade. Barbashev going to Vegas for Zach Dean going to St. Louis. So anyways, do plan on getting another episode recorded today. If enough stuff happens. If we don't see too much happen today, then I probably won't, but we'll have to wait and see. And if I do record another episode today, I'm probably going to post it on Tuesday just to space it out a bit more. So, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this fairly quick podcast, I guess, by my standards. If you enjoyed the podcast, feel free to subscribe on YouTube. Leave a like on YouTube as well. The podcast is on Instagram. You can find us there, Hockey Variety Podcast. We also have a Facebook page, Hockey Variety Podcast, over there as well. Thank you so much for the support. I really do appreciate all the support I get for this podcast. And feel free to leave a comment. Let me know if I'm right or wrong, or if you just have a different take on one of the things to talk about. I would love to hear from you. So, have a good rest of your weekend. And, talk to you again soon.